Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Jenny Aiello, and this is With Love, Jenny, a podcast where we meet ourselves right in the heart of our vulnerability and authenticity. In this sacred space, where it's just you and I dive into real life, rich with wisdom and opportunities for deep healing. I explore what it means to truly connect to ourselves, to each other, and to something much greater than us all. In each podcast, I like to meet life right where it touches us most, in our tenderness, in our truth, in our struggles and our strength. So wherever you are on your journey, or whatever it is that you're carrying, no matter how light or heavy, just know I'm so grateful that you're here with me today. So take a deep breath, settle in, and let's begin today's episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to With Love, Jenny. I started to say with Jenny, love. And so here we are, off to a great start on our podcast today. I'm excited about what we want to share. And I want to tell you, this is kind of a story within a bigger story. And you don't have to go back and listen to the last episode, but to get context, you might enjoy hearing our last episode, which was a story about a trip that I earned about 20 years ago. And the theme of our last podcast was what happens when things don't turn out like you want them to or expect them to, and how you handle your disappointment. And I introduced a 5-step process in that episode that is how to navigate when the unexpected happens, especially when that is an unexpected outcome that isn't what you want to have happen. And how do we navigate that emotionally and spiritually? So Kristen and I had a lively discussion in our last episode about all the different stories we could tell. Both of us shared 2 very different stories with the same exact process needing to be at play. So to review that real quick before we dive in today, that process is 1, to pause, to get present to what is happening, what is going on, what is not going on that we expected to have going on. So what is working, what is not working. The second part is to define it, name it, give it a name, define it, and then call it what it is. What is happening, and say it, because we tend to go into denial real quick. And when we go into denial, our ego is still going to try to get what it wants instead of maybe what we need to have happen. And so naming it and defining it makes it real. It gives us something outside ourselves to go, tangibly, I am looking at this and this is what is happening. The third step is then to say, what is it trying to teach me? What is this experience teaching me about myself, about life, about what? What's the lesson here? And the fourth is to choose to get unattached to the disappointment and instead attach to acceptance and gratitude. Accept what is happening as you've just defined it. Accept what it might be trying to teach you, and then move into a level of gratitude around the whole situation, because gratitude is an instant deal breaker. It means this doesn't have to be as bad as it seems. It always puts you in alignment with an appreciation of something good, and what we focus on expands. So gratitude is such a huge tool in our toolbox. So on step 4, it's accepting it and having gratitude for it. And then on the 5th step, it's surrendering. It's finally letting go of all the control and all the need for it to go differently and accept what is. And we'll probably hear from Kristen, a great story she has about that inner turmoil that you have when you don't get what you want and what we can do about that. So in today's story, to recap last episode, in case you missed it, I had won this trip to go on a Caribbean cruise with my husband, with my friends who worked for the same company. And it was a luxury cruise. We got spoiled top to bottom on these trips. And within the first 24 hours, our first port was in San Juan, Puerto Rico, and my husband had an abscess in his throat that was rapidly growing to the point of being life-threatening. We ended up in a hospital in San Juan. I thought we would get some drugs and go back to the ship, but we never made it out of the hospital. The ship came back and everyone was home before we even left that hospital. So the experience itself was a disappointment for me because I didn't get to have what I thought I wanted. You can go back and hear all of the wonderful things that I experienced in that 5-step process. And Kristen had a similar story, very different circumstances, but a similar story where she had a life-threatening experience and how we both had to go through a pause it, name it. What is it teaching me? How can I have gratitude for it? And how do I surrender to it? And all the lessons and growth that came from both experiences. But in this story today, I want to pick up where we left off by telling you some of the other stories within it that were very profound. And today we're going to encompass 3 things. So as you hear my story, you're going to be listening for them. One is that thoughts do become things very often. 2, there's always a blessing somewhere. I don't care what it is that you're going through or how awful it is. There is always a blessing right outside the edge of it if you will look up and see it. So you have to look for it and you have to claim the blessing. 3, pay attention to the helpers and to the messengers involved. Sometimes we're so caught up in the circumstances we're in that we fail to notice that there are built-in messengers and helpers and recognize that. And then you can go back into step 4 of gratitude and appreciation for them, right? Because they really are there guiding you. And the over-encompassing theme to both of these episodes, last one and this one, is, are things falling into place when they feel like they're falling apart? Is there something bigger happening than our little mind can conceptualize? Is there a bigger divine plan, more perfect for me, happening than the one that I thought was perfect for me? And that shifting gears from what we think is best for us into accepting and surrendering to maybe there's something bigger that's best for us, even if it feels bad. So what was that story within the story? While I was getting ready for this trip, I had earned it. And now we were in the busy part of finding out what we need to pack and take with us and making lists. I had 5 young children at the time. My mom and dad came and took care of them. Bless their souls forever. But I made a lot of lists. I was a control freak, right? So I had to make sure my mom had everything she possibly needed for every case scenario. If something happened, if they fell and needed surgery, somebody had to have power of attorney. I had thought of everything. And I was very focused on that for weeks and weeks. And then Bob said, by the way, taxes are due. Like, we get home after April 15th. So we have to have all our taxes done before we can leave. So now I had a whole nother mountain of things to do to get all of my stuff together for my business for us to do our taxes. So I did that. In the midst of all of this, and you all, this is 20 years ago. This is before it was easy to do on computers and cell phones. I'm calling my friends and we're trying to all pick the same shore excursions for each of the islands that we went on this cruise so that we could do that together. And the very first one was, I think it was a tour of a gin factory. I think that's what it was, in San Juan or in Puerto Rico somewhere. And I wanted a rainforest tour, but nobody else really wanted that. So I went with what everybody else said. And when I hung up, we all got the tour of I think it was the gin tour. And I went back and my husband said, did you get it figured out? And I said, yeah. He goes, what are we doing? And I told him, and he's like, why don't you look happy about it? And I said, well, I really wanted to go to the rainforest. But at this point, I'm just going to be happy being with you on a beautiful island. I don't care if we're stranded on an island. a tropical island where you and I get to finish our conversations and we get to just not have to be parents or not have to run our business. I'm just so ready for a break. I can't wait. It's going to be fine. And he said, I agree. So we get everything done. We go, well, now fast forward, as you heard in the last episode or what I just recapped, we ended up in a hospital and we didn't get to go on the cruise. And at some point, I was feeding Bob mango because someone brought it in and said, would you like to try some mango, fresh mango out of their yard? And I was like, great. And Bob was on a soft food diet because he could barely open his mouth. So I'm cutting slivers of mango and feeding him. And I thought, wow, thoughts really do become things. And I said, all I have to do, I could look at this and be sad. We're not on a cruise ship. We're not with our friends. We're not on an excursion. This is horrible. This is a horrible situation. Or I could look at it and say, I'm stranded on a tropical island, feeding mango to my husband in bed. It's everything I wished for. So thoughts become things. And I said to myself, I guess I better be more specific next time so that I don't end up in a situation like this again. So that was one of the first moments I realized I'm learning something really big here about life. So because we were in a semi-private room, the man next to us with the curtain between us was by the window and we were closest to the door. And he was a Hispanic man. He was a grandfather. So all of his children and all of his grandchildren flocked in and out of the room. And they were so loving and so happy. And even though we didn't speak a bit of Spanish and couldn't understand a thing they were saying, the love didn't have a language. It was felt. The joy, we didn't have to understand it to feel the laughter, the love, and the joy and the celebration of getting to see each other. And I noticed it and I felt appreciative of that and was reflecting on that. And I thought, why am I here? Why are we not having this happen when we're home where our family could come and see us? Why am I stuck in an island somewhere where I don't know anybody and we're all alone and there's nobody that will come and see us here. Like we're literally the only two people we knew was each other on this whole island. And I had that thought. And about that time, someone entered our hospital room and I pointed and said, he's in that bed, because she was looking like she didn't know who she was looking for. And I said, he's probably over there, and pointed. And she says, Bob. And I said, what? And she said, Bob, Jenny. And I said, Bob and Jenny? Are you saying Bob and Jenny? And she says, Bob and Jenny? And I said, yes, I'm Jenny. And this is Bob. And I was like, somebody said our names. Oh my gosh, we have a friend. And she said, I'm Daisy. She worked for the same company that we did. And our company, this wonderful company, had contacted her and said, we have a situation where our consultant is stranded in a hospital with her husband. Would you mind checking on them? And she was a breath of fresh air. She was light. She was hope. I didn't know how much I needed a hug until she walked in the room. I didn't know how much it meant to have someone say my name. It was the most surreal experience. I had nothing but gratitude. She was a helper, but she was also a messenger. She came bearing gifts. In Puerto Rico, in the hospital, you have to bring your own linens. You have to bring your own towel. You have to pay for a phone if you want to have phone service. You have to pay to watch TV. There was no ice and 7-Up pitchers brought to your room, with the little styrofoam pitcher like they do here in the hospital. We had none of that. And she brought us cold drinks and ice. And I mean, she knew what we didn't know and she knew what we were missing. She brought it. Her husband joined us. I was eternally grateful for this new friend, right? So every day I couldn't stay in the hospital. They didn't allow it. So I had to get a hotel. So I was a couple blocks away, and every morning I would get up and I would walk down to the lobby and through the lobby to walk down to the hospital. There was a huge, very tall Puerto Rican gentleman standing there with his arms folded, and he would look down because he was very tall. Every day I would walk by like clockwork. He'd say, "Are you going to the rainforest today?" And I would say, "No, my husband's in the hospital. I'm going to the hospital." And for the first 10 days we were there every day, that's what I did. "No, not today. Going back to the hospital." I don't even think I told him where I was going. I just said, "No, not today." And at some point I thought, you know, that's what I wanted all along, was to go to the rainforest. And then I signed up for the gin tour. And truth be known, I do want to go to the rainforest. Why? Why, God, do you have someone asking me every day if I want to go now that I can't? And I went up and sat in the hospital room and would go into a pity party about it. And here I'm so close and yet so far once again. And I thought about it and I thought, what if I did? And I was scared because every day there would be a new test run, a new doctor would come in, and I didn't want to miss what was happening or what decisions needed to be made so we could go home. And at the same time, I thought, maybe I'm here to go to the rainforest. And maybe that's the point of this whole thing. So again, in my 5-step process, I would pause and I'd name it. And I said, what is it trying to teach me? And am I listening? Am I listening to what I'm needing? Am I listening to what the helpers are asking me? And am I sitting in gratitude or pity? Am I sitting in appreciation or resentment? And I started working through that process with everything. With Daisy, I was in instant gratitude. So when she came in, I said, "Daisy, can I ask you if you've ever been to the rainforest?" She goes, "Oh, yes, the rainforest. It's beautiful." I said, "Is it worth the tour? Because our hotel takes people to the rainforest, and I wondered if I shouldn't go." And she said, "Oh, you definitely want to go. You definitely want to go if you can." But she said, "Today I am here to invite you to spend a day with me tomorrow, if you would be willing to do that." And Bob was feeling better. The antibiotics were working. He goes, "Jenny, please go. Please go and spend the day." And she said, "I don't want this to be all you think of when you hear about our beautiful island, is this horrible hospital stay. I want you to see the beautiful island." So she picked me up the next day and I went with her. And it happened to be that that day, a tropical depression hovered over top of the entire island, and it was torrential rain. We couldn't get out of the car without getting drenched. So we drove around. She'd show me the old town. She showed me scenery through the windshield wipers flapping, rain everywhere. We stopped. She bought plantains from a little roadside fruit stand. She said, "I want to make you plantains." She took me back to her house and she cooked plantains. And we continued talking about our experience, and the best I could understand her. She spoke pretty good English, but it was still hard for me. And the sun came out, and I went in her backyard, which was a tropical forest of its own, and I could see birds that we only see in the pet store. These huge parrots, beautiful, colorful birds were singing. The coqui, the little tree frogs were singing. The sun came out. It was spectacular. I was like, I don't understand what's happening to me. First, I'm in a pity party because it rained. I can't even see the beauty. Then I was surrounded by the beauty because I was like, I want to see it. And I was in it. I was in paradise again. She was frying plantains, and I had asked once again, should I try to go tomorrow? It's probably going to be our last day. They're talking about sending us home on Sunday. She goes, "Go to the rainforest." And I said, "Well, I have the same outfit on because I only had one outfit. I didn't expect to not go back to the ship that first day, so I didn't bring extra clothes, right?" And so I'm like, I'm wearing my flip-flops and my sundress. "Is this okay to wear to the rainforest?" She's like, "You need shoes." And I said, oh, where would I be able to buy shoes? Well, there was nothing open. And I said, I guess I'm just not meant to go to the rainforest. And so she's cooking, and I'm talking to her family and her children and going outside and appreciating all the beauty. And I came in, she was on a phone call talking really fast in Spanish, no idea what she was talking about. And we had dinner, and I got to taste a lot of authentic foods that were her favorites. And the doorbell rang, and here was this man. It had started raining again, and he is now drenched from the car to the door, and he's holding a pair of shoes. She had asked me what size shoe I wore, and we had determined I couldn't wear hers. She was like a size 5.5, and I was an 8. And I was like, I don't think I could cram my foot in a size 5.5 sneaker. So here I'm in a surreal moment again, right? Because here's this man, he's drenched. It was Daisy's best friend's husband, who lived 45 minutes away, who wore a size 8, who donated a pair of sneakers for me to wear so I could go to the rainforest. And I had trouble receiving that. Like, oh my gosh, but he went to so much trouble. I had to say thank you. There was nothing to do but say thank you, right? So I have these sneakers, and she gave me a pair of socks, and I left, and she took me back to the hospital. And I said to Bob, tomorrow when this man says, would you like to go to the rainforest today? I'm going to say yes. And I have to say yes, because this friend who came and checked on us called her friend, who sent her husband 45 minutes in a rainstorm to bring me shoes so I can walk on the path to the rainforest. So I'm going to go. And he said, that's great. You need to go. I can't wait to hear what happens. Next morning, he says, are you going to the rainforest today? And I said, well, I don't know. Is it a good day to go to the rainforest when it's done nothing but rain? And he laughed, and he said, it's a perfect day for you to go to the rainforest. And it felt like this was bigger than a tour guide voice. It felt mystical to me. Like all of a sudden, I'm like, you have invited me every single day. And now you're telling me that now is the day that's perfect for me to go. And Kristen and I were talking about this story, and she said, is he just a sales guy trying to make money off of you? And the answer is yes, I'm sure. He owned a tour company, and he was in business, and his job was to recruit people to go to the rainforest. That was true. But in the moment, I felt something. I felt an energy bigger. I felt something my soul recognized as an invitation. And it felt like a divine invitation. It felt like I had to listen deeper than just the words. And so I said, today I am going. And he said, go over here and get your ticket. So I did. And I went out and said, where do I go now? And he said, you can just wait with me. And he said, are you in Puerto Rico for business or pleasure? And I had to stop and get present. Step 1, pause. I was like, neither. I don't know why I'm here. And he said, that's an interesting answer. Why are you here? This was the voice of a messenger, right? And I said, I don't know. I think while I'm waiting, I'm going to ask myself, why am I here? And that became the question. I could define what was happening through that question. Well, the tour bus came. He told me before it got there, I want to give you a book. And he took me over to his car, and he gets a book, and it was, now I'm going to blank on the name of it. It was like something about universal law. So he gives it to me, and I'm like, you want me to read this? And he's like, yes, take it. You can keep it. My card is inside. And I said, okay. And so I did. And I couldn't read on the van ride to the rainforest because it was curvy and I get car sick. But I kept that book. I still have it over here. I could probably find it real quick. And we stopped at a few sightseeing things. We climbed up in a fire tower and looked over the rainforest, and we drove more and did some sightseeing. And then we finally arrived, and he said, when you go, he said, make sure you allow time to get back up. If you follow the trail down into the rainforest, it takes longer to get back up because it's uphill. We do leave on time. So if you're not here, we will leave you and you will spend the night in the rainforest. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I'm a rule follower. He's like, you stay on the path, always stay on the path. And I said, okay. Well, long story short, as we were getting off the bus, he said to me, it's important for you to be at the waterfall by yourself. And I'm with like 12 people. And I thought, well, how am I going to ask everybody to leave? And how am I going to wait? Because if I wait, I might miss the bus. And he didn't say anymore. He just said, it's important that you be there by yourself. So everybody stops at the gift shop. So I think, well, I'm going to go ahead of them. So maybe I'll have a moment alone. So I go down the trail and I'm all of a sudden enraptured with the beauty. If you've never been in a rainforest, I can't even begin to tell you how spectacular it is and what that energy is like. It's about life. There was not one area that didn't have a life force attached to it. It was nature in its finest hour. And the stream was flowing fast because of all the rain. And I loved the sound of the stream, and the trail went right alongside it. And out of every nook and cranny was a enormous plant growing. And as high as I could see toward the sky were giant leaves and beautiful birds singing. And it was just, I felt like I was in the Garden of Eden. And I walked and walked, and the path took me away from the stream, and I didn't like it. And I didn't want to go. I wanted to stay by the water. And I thought I'd just follow the stream. And it took me further away to the point I couldn't hear it anymore. And then I was just in silence. And again, I would pause and get present and take it in. And then it dropped off. And the reason it took you away from it was because you had to go down a steep hill. So it led me safely to the bottom of what was the most powerful waterfall I've ever seen. And I'm a waterfall junkie. I go everywhere where I can find a waterfall. And this big boulder was at the base of the waterfall. And because of the tropical storm and all the rain and the rapid pace the water was flowing, it came over this waterfall and exploded on top of this boulder, making the most beautiful second waterfall you could ever imagine. And all I could think of when I looked at it was the word power. It was so much power in that water. And there was a pool beneath it, and there was a couple on their honeymoon, and they asked if I'd take their pictures, so I did. And then they scurried on, and I'm thinking the whole time, like, why am I here? Why am I here? And I was expecting God himself to reveal himself. I thought, this is a divine appointment about to happen, right? I'm starting to assign expectations to this moment, and I recognized it. So I paused, and I'm like, just be present, just be in this moment. And I walked across, and there was a little footbridge that this stream that came off of the pool that was under the waterfall, that water flowed under the footbridge. And I walked over and I stood there. And at this point, nothing was happening. No divine message, no visit from God himself. Nothing was happening. And I waited and I waited and I waited. And as I looked over the bridge, a huge leaf fell. It let go of a tree, very tall, and it fell down into the water like a feather. And I watched it fall and I followed it. And it came closer and closer to me. And then it went right underneath the bridge. I watched it go underneath. And when I did, I happened to be looking down at the leaf, but I saw my feet. And they were standing in someone's shoes that I don't know. And they were actually a size bigger than what I wore. So they were too big, but I could lace them tight. And I thought, how funny my feet look in these big shoes. And I stood in that awareness. And this is the stuff that happens when you are in a present moment, right? It's the full everything of that moment, the leaf falling, following it, my eyes tracking the leaf until they saw the shoes. I saw the shoes. And in that moment, almost like the past year flashed before my eyes, everything I did to earn that trip. And I said, okay, I worked 9 months really hard. I earned the trip only to not get to go on the trip, but not before getting partway on the trip and ending up in the hospital. My husband had to get sick. I ended up in the rainforest after all, alone. Where are all the people? I don't know, but there was no one but me in this space, me and God having a moment. And I'm having a moment of humor in the fact that our company found someone to check on me, who found a pair of shoes for me, who had this person's husband drive 45 minutes in a torrential tropical storm to get them to me so that I could be here in this moment. All the things that had to line up for me to be at the base of a waterfall in a rainforest in Puerto Rico by myself. The likelihood of me ever doing that is 0.00001% chance in my lifetime I would duplicate that experience, right? And there I was, and I was in it. And I said, what is it here to teach me? God, what am I to learn? And the word, look at the waterfall. The word came through, look at the waterfall. And I'm like, it's so majestic. It's so powerful. And it was, look at the shoes. They're so big. And I put the message together that each one of us, I'm going to say it in my tense, but it's true for all of us, is that we're so much more majestic and powerful than we ever give ourselves credit for. We're so much more majestic, brilliant, powerful, amazing. And I thought, what does that have to do with the shoes? And I'm not playing to my own strength. I am not owning my own brilliance. I'm not owning my own power. I have bigger shoes to fill than the ones I'm walking in my life. I am here to do bigger things with my life than what I've been doing. I have been playing small, and I needed an interruption. I needed a wake-up call, because what God had as a plan for me was way bigger than what I held myself capable of. And when I realized that God did all that for me to get that message, I had to go home and honor it. I had to go home and live differently, bigger, own my gifts and own my power. And that's what the point of that whole sad story was there to teach me. And now it was up to me to receive. And so I walked back up and I got back, and I couldn't wait to tell Bob how grateful I was that he was willing to succumb to this abscess so that I could have the experience I had. Now, we can go into a philosophical discussion about whether he created that or God created that or the universe created these situations and why it all happened. But for me, I could choose to say it did happen. I choose to look at it as it happened and there was something there. There's always a blessing somewhere if we look for it. And because I looked for it, I found it and I found our messengers. And by the way, the business card tucked inside that book gave the name of the man who asked me and invited me to the rainforest every day. And his name was Ray Sunshine. And there's no accidents. I think everything is divinely guided. And I felt nothing but blessed around the whole scenario from start to finish because of thoughts become things. My soul knew it needed the rainforest. My mind and ego wanted to have fun with my friends and do what they were doing. My soul needed reinforcement that we're not in this life alone and that the universe really has our back and that there's a blessing somewhere if I will just look for it. And most of all, learning how to pay attention to the messengers. They cross our path every single day, and we don't always stop to listen. So that is my story of the day with so much rich wisdom embedded in it. And Kristen has some thoughts as always. And we also talked about that struggle between what we want and what we need in our soul. So Kristen,
well, my first thought is when you came home from that trip, is that when you started looking into how can I help others?
Yes.
Was that the catalyst?
Yes. I've always been in that space, but I had such a small vision of what that looked like. And I did it in I don't want to call it irresponsible way. I did it in little nooks and cranny kind of way. And I came back and it led me into my coaching career. It led me into helping people listen and find their soul and their soul's voice, and to learn to yield to these nudges, to align to our highest good. I learned so much, and I came back with so much in my heart and so much as far as my growth, that the entire course of what I did, it took me out of that company, sadly, because I loved it, but it moved me into a whole new direction in life.
Well, that's what I'm curious about. Because like you were so good at your job that you won this amazing trip.
Right.
That you could have been like, okay, this is what I'm good at. But you had
stayed there.
Yeah, you had no idea that was just a small part of how you could be of service to the world.
Yeah, that was boot camp for me.
Right.
I call it boot camp because I learned a lot about myself through that. I grew up a lot in that company, but I also got very clear that it was a direct sales company. It wasn't about that. It was about something bigger that I got to do there, and I could take that with me, which is empowering others. Right. I was an empowerment coach, which is why I earned the trip. I empowered my team, to earn the trip or to earn whatever they wanted in life. And I found that working with people, understanding what matters to them and how we're all different, and there's no one size fits all to anything, I found it so enriching. And my insights were really profound. And so all there was is to go hone the skills to take it to that next level. And it led me right into almost immediately into a coaching program, a 4-year coaching program.
Oh, I love that so much. And after that happened, were you, at least in the beginning, were you very aware of helpers coming into your awareness? Because you listened to him?
I burst into another realm of existence. I want to say I was transported into what I thought was true, but couldn't be sure. I now operated with certainty. There is a divine force. There is a life force at work. There is something 100%. Going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Greater and bigger than we could ever imagine. And that it was not just an opportunity, but it was critical that I trust that voice, that I trust what's happening and quit fighting it. To let go of that resistance. I still gravitate toward its human instinct to resist change, but I go back to that. If this is a rainforest waterfall moment for me, get on with it, right? Quit resisting it and start looking for the helpers and the messages and what is there for me to learn and how can this be serving a higher good for me?
Right.
And there's nothing to do but say, yes, I want that. I want what's happening. It goes back to the phrase, you hear me say it all the time. It was happening for me all along, not happening to me.
I think it takes a lot of courage to say yes, especially whatever the circumstances are going around. Like you could have been like, no, I need to be with my husband, but your husband gave you permission. Like all the right things fell into place. Like, I don't know. I just think it takes a lot of courage to say yes to the helpers, I love
It
that.
does. And I want to also go back to what you just said, because I just heard this yesterday and I thought, that's what it really is. Because I don't feel like I asked permission. I just asked if it was a smart decision. I was
Right.
getting support for a decision my soul had already made. Right. I had already made that decision, but I wanted to also take into consideration, and
Right.
this is important. And the reason I'm going back to it, you'll hear in just a second, is I wanted his support to go. I didn't want to leave him stranded in the hospital and scared if he was going to have emergency surgery that day. I didn't want that to happen.
Right.
But I was like, what do you think about this idea if I go tomorrow instead of coming right here? And he was 100%. He said, Jenny, that's what you've wanted to do the whole time. Of course you
Yeah.
need to go.
Well,
So I got his support. And I want to go back to that because permission, it's a very interesting word, the difference between support and permission, right?
right.
And for me, getting that support validated what my soul needed. And two, it's hard for me. It took courage to say yes without getting that support because maybe it wasn't the right decision. Was I listening to the right helper? I could go into all kinds of uncertainty there.
Yeah.
And when I pause and get present, everything that unfolded that day was so magical and so divinely intentional. I don't know how to even put in words how it felt to go through that. But all I knew was I was receiving something of a miracle.
Well, and I
That's
was
how it
kind of
felt.
on Bob's side. So I totally understand the situation. So 3 or 4 weeks into my brain bleed, Chris and I were supposed to go to a Tim McGraw concert together. And Chris loves Tim McGraw. Like this was a once in a lifetime thing. And he came to me and asked me, what do you think about this? And I said, especially after all he'd gone through in the last 3 weeks as well. And my
Right.
friend was coming to sit with me the
Yeah.
whole time, and his mom was going to go to the concert with him. And I'm like, go. And I'm glad he went. Like, I
Yeah.
truly wanted him to go.
Yes. Yes. And that's a gift, right?
Yeah.
That's a gift of generosity. And so it's receiving that support and allowing ourselves to follow that nudge because I could have martyred my way through another day in the hospital, missing yet again my, that rainforest was calling. I couldn't go yet again. And that's that choice. That is where we have these times where it feels selfish to say, I want to go do something for me today that I haven't gotten to do yet. And it's when we go into the selfishness, it can feel like a pity party versus into self-care and self-love, which can feel empowering.
Yeah.
And have the support of someone saying, go take care of yourself. This is important for you to do. Your gift to Chris, Bob's gift to me, gave a validation that it's okay for us to stop and still experience joy. And for people that are caregivers, whether it's permanent or short term, in my case, very short term, in your case, a little longer short term, but some people are busy caregiving. Taking time to take care of yourself, it is so important because we can feel guilty, like taking care away from someone who is vulnerable feels selfish. And I think we've been taught that it's selfish. And I think we've been taught that it's not okay to consider ourselves in the midst of a scenario like that. Or we can go the other extreme in the ego selfishness part of it and throw a fit and stomp our foot and say, I haven't gotten to do anything. I'm going to go do it and do it in anger to justify it versus, hey, I think it'd be okay for me to do this. It would really feel good for me to get some fresh air, or for me to go to this concert with my mom and be able to have that support is very, very important, but we shouldn't need it to get permission. And I think that's why that triggered me because I spent my life needing permission.
Yeah.
And I don't want to have permission anymore to take care of myself. I want to say that I'm doing that as an act of love for me, but also as an act of love for everyone else. Because when I take care of myself, I'm better at taking care of others.
Yep.
Right? So, yeah, what is the story, or what are your thoughts and experiences, Kristen, when the helpers might be coming, and what form might they take? And as we were prepping for this call, you shared a story that happened just a couple weeks ago when you were camping with your family. Can you share the story? And then I'm going to ask you about who you think the helpers and the messengers were.
Well, it's funny, as you were telling your story, I realized that there were some helpers in my story.
Yes.
And
I didn't know.
No, I had no idea. But this story is very, very minor. We went camping last weekend, and my boys are getting older, and they're getting to the point where they don't always want to be with mom and dad. And it was kind of a shock to me because, like, when we go on vacation, we always go do fun things together. Well, they wanted to stay at the campground. And I was like, no, I want to go on an adventure, because that's my favorite thing to do in the mountains, even if it's just to drive around in the mountains and see the beauty. It's like, no, Mom, we really want to stay. And I was like, okay, it's a beautiful campground. There's a lake on one side, a stream in the middle you can tube down. And I was fighting, relaxing in the beauty of nature. And I didn't feel good either. And I was like, okay, I can figure this out. And I got to read a book that was so profound to me. I probably wouldn't have finished it if I didn't have that day. I got to sit by a stream and talk to my husband, and we hung out with our dog. And I was like, okay, I needed this. And the next day I felt so much better, because when I do allow myself to relax, I feel better. So I feel like, okay, day one, the boys were my helpers, even though I was not happy with the situation.
Right. And so the boys were the helpers, but so were the friends who happened to be divinely appointed at that campground on that particular day. So they would meet them.
Yes, they are in love with these friends. And actually, they had been there the year before we figured this out, and they hung out with them then. So the next day, I'm like, okay, we're going out today.
Now I get my adventure.
Well, no, Mom, this is going on here. And we want to do tie-dye, and we want to go play gaga ball, all this stuff that happens in campgrounds. And I'm like, no, I want to go out. Like, I want to have fun too. And I'm like laughing because we did this to my parents because we grew up camping.
Yes.
And we would meet friends at the campground, and we didn't want to go anywhere. And my dad loved adventure. So I got them to go out. We went on a hike. It was a mile hike, which I would have wanted to do longer, but it was a beautiful view. We really enjoyed it. And then they wanted to go back home. And I'm starting to feel the little inner 12-year-old temper tantrum come out. And I'm like, yes. Hey, Kristen, you're the mom. You cannot have a temper tantrum. And Chris was sensing this. He's like, well, why don't we stop at that folk art museum we saw on the way on the Blue Ridge Parkway? I'm like, oh, okay. That sounds like a little adventure. We've never been there. We get there. The boys don't want to get out of the car. They're fighting us. And I got my one son to come by demanding that he comes, because I'm like, you love art. I'm like, let's just go in there. And so we go in, and there was the cutest little embroidery kit in the gift shop. And my husband's like, just get it. Just get it. I'm like, no, it's $28. I'm not spending $28 on this embroidery kit. And it was a message I did not listen to. And I regret it, because I could have taken it back to the campground where the kids wanted to be and worked on it. It was a beautiful wildflower scene.
Oh.
And I'm still kicking myself, which I did end up ordering an embroidery kit online. But anyways, they're like, okay, can we go home now? And I'm like, I really don't want to go back. Like, it's not even noon, you guys. And Chris is like, well, I saw the visitor center on the way in. Why don't we go there? And I'm like, okay, let's go to the visitor center. There's always a cute little museum, So we get there, and the boys don't want to get out of the car. So we go in. There's nothing really big going on in there. We're just looking at this map, and up walks a helper. This guy's like, so what's going on today? As a docent, he's probably 80 years old, wearing a mask because he doesn't want to get sick. And I'm like, oh, we're just kind of exploring. He's like, well, if you want to go on a hike, there's the short hike. You can do this. He's like, and he explains the whole thing. He's like, just follow the yellow dots the whole way, so you don't go on a tangent into a longer hike. And I'm like, oh, okay. So we go back to the car and the kids don't want to go with us. I'm like, okay, we're going on this hike. It's not too long. They can sit in the car. We brought the dog and we followed the yellow dots. And I kept thinking in my head, oh, we're following the yellow brick road. And it was just, there wasn't anything special about the hike. It was kind of along the Blue Ridge Parkway. So you kept hearing cars, but like I got my fix in and I was able to go back to the campground after that and enjoy it. But again, if I didn't listen to the helper, I could have been pissed and gotten back in the car and pouted like old Kristen would have pouted and just gone back to the campground.
Right.
And then go ahead. There was one more part of the story. And then we decided to go back out for dinner into Black Mountain. Anybody knows Black Mountain in North Carolina, it's just so special.
Yes.
And we had the best waitress. And I don't know why she was so in tune to me. She brought me like this special dressing to try. Like she knew my dietary restrictions. And like, I'm like, okay, I'm all about the coffee and the food in the mountains too. There was a coffee shop next door. I went and got coffee. They had the cutest little gluten-free dessert there that I ended up loving. And it ended up working out. Like we all had fun, but I had to it was really hard to quiet down the tantrum.
Yes.
And accept. But I did. Like I was working really hard on it. I did not give into it.
There's so many parts to this, but I think it's funny that you have to work hard before you get to the piece of acceptance. And isn't that true? We make it hard.
Yeah. I really had to calm myself down. Like, okay, you're an adult.
That's the inner child.
Yeah.
She wanted what she wanted.
Yeah.
And that's that, but there was something you needed, which you said, and I want to make sure you heard yourself, and you probably already did process that. But the first day you said, okay, you kind of surrendered to it the first day of I'll just stay here. And we had quiet time. You sat by the stream. I'm picturing you and Chris sitting there with your dog. The boys are playing and they're happy, and I can hear the laughter. I can feel the beauty of the sun on the water and the beautiful trees and the mountains. The energy's clean and peaceful there. And your soul needs peace. Your soul needs quiet and stillness. Everything you do is seeking it, and then you resist it when it's there.
Right.
And then when you've allowed and indulged your need for that, your soul's need for that, you always feel better. Almost 100% of the time, you'll say, when I got relaxed, I felt good. I had a good day. The nausea was gone.
Yeah.
So that's the nausea that you carry is a helper. It's a helper saying, slow down. You need more. You need more than what you're giving. You're probably getting just enough downtime to not get sicker, but you need more to feel well. Because when you give yourself those quiet times watering your garden and taking a walk through the woods, or when you allow yourself a day to just be with your family, even though it's not an exciting adventure, it's peace and quiet and stillness, which is an adventure all its own, but one that you need. And so there's I need an adventure, but my soul needs to be still.
I never thought of the nausea as a helper. It's mind blowing.
It's a messenger at the very least, right? It's a messenger. You don't have enough stillness yet. You don't have enough peace and quiet yet. And that's not just around you. That's when your mind had to settle down.
Right. Exactly.
And fall into the pages of a good book, and that alone helped all your body relax. And when your body relaxed and your soul felt peace, you felt better.
Yeah. It was
These are all messengers.
Yeah. It was like medicine to my soul.
Yeah. And so then the need for that adventure, was almost a forcing. Okay. What I want to ask is, what part of you is satisfied by the adventure? What part of you insisted? What was the 12-year-old wanting?
That expansive feeling of being out in nature and feeling my true self in Colorado.
So you were trying to get home to you, right?
Yes, exactly.
Into the fullness of you. So if you can understand that, my guess is that you pretty much could have been there in the campground. But there's something about getting out to see the view of mountains when you hike up and then you see endless rows of those beautiful
The
blue
best.
mountains, the Smoky Mountains, wherever you were. It's like our mountains here in North Carolina rock. I got to say, we have some
Yes.
good mountains views, and the endlessness of them connects us to the endlessness of us, of how expansive our soul is. And it takes us back to that. My looking at this enormously powerful waterfall reflected a part of me I hadn't been in touch with.
Yeah.
You standing on a mountain and seeing the beautiful expansiveness of a mountain range that goes on forever.
It's my favorite.
It reflects part of you that you're searching for too, that you haven't fully embraced. And that's the beauty of that messenger. It's like everything is talking to us. Everything is reflecting back to us in people, places, and things.
It's almost like I challenge the listeners to notice 2 things in one day of a message or a
that was
helper.
just for you.
Yeah, just for you.
Just for you.
Just notice.
Right. And just for you in that moment. Like sometimes I pull up behind a car and that bumper sticker is like, thank you, messenger.
Yes.
Thank you. That was helpful for me today. And sometimes I go into judgment over what their bumper sticker says. Some of them are angry bumper stickers on their car. And I have to think, what part of me is angry today? Thank you for pointing that out, because I too am capable of being very angry. So everything is speaking to us. Everything is a mirror that's reflecting some part of us that we want to pay attention to. And some people find that exercise exhausting. I find it like a treasure hunt. I find it so exciting when I take that rainforest experience into my day-to-day living and know that even though I don't tangibly have 9 months of working toward a trip, only to get on the trip, only to get off the trip, only to have all these other things fall into place, only to have this person invite me to the rainforest till I finally said yes, and only to have me go and be there all by myself, alone in the rainforest long enough to look at my shoes that were big and feel my smallness against the powerful waterfall. I have that moment every single day when I come across a messenger and I get present to it, and I think of everything that had to happen for that divine moment to occur. For that car, somebody had to get in it, and they had to have some place to go, and they had to have a reason to go on the same road as me and hit the same stoplight and pull right in front of me so that I could see that message. When you think about everything being orchestrated like that, for our best and highest good, it's mind-boggling. It is actually mind-boggling.
Yeah, and people wonder, even myself, how do I have a closer relationship with God? How do I get to know God? That's it.
That's a big it.
Yeah.
Right?
He's trying to communicate with us in all these different ways.
Right. And we take almost all of it for granted because we're human and we have to live our life.
And we have wounds.
Yes.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up today's discussion, which I've just loved this episode, but I hope you all have enjoyed it too, I want to review those 3 things. Thoughts become things. If that's true, if our thought creates a feeling and the feeling creates a vibration that attracts an experience that we need to have, then wouldn't it be smart for us to choose our thoughts? I really needed that experience. I needed that time alone with my husband on a tropical island where I could feed him mango and find beauty in that and find God in that, not just in the dream come true vacation. I got what I wanted more than what I thought I needed. Thoughts become things, so choose them wisely. There is always a blessing somewhere. And this is a tough one, I think, for us as humans, because some things are tragic, some things are horrific, some things, are beyond comprehension. Sometimes grief is beyond our ability to find that blessing, but it is there somewhere. And maybe the blessing comes from the helpers who come to that situation. But there's always a blessing somewhere, and it's up to us to find that. And that's what helps us heal. And then the last is to pay attention to those messages around us. What form are they taking? Why did that happen? I notice when the birds are singing, stop and listen. What if it was a messenger? What am I hearing from that? To stop and listen. Maybe that's the message. Just stop and listen to your own thoughts, because thoughts become things. Pay attention to what you see, what you hear, what you feel, what you think about. Pay attention. Stay in the present moment. It is so rich and deep and multifaceted that I want to challenge you, Kristen. Stay in the present moment and use that moment as an invitation to stay out of the future moments that give you anxiety. So I will invite all of you to do the same. And then we're going to invite you to join us in the blessing room. We're going to talk about this a little bit further and have a little extra special surprise for you over in the blessing room. The link is in the show notes, and you're welcome to join us and be a part. You're not just getting in the blessing room to hear us talk more. You're not just going to the blessing room to be able to see our library full of meditations and gifts, but you're also getting to be a part of our community. And I have to tell you, we love our community. We send so much love out, and we are building a community of sacred, soft places to land, a community of helpers, a community of love in action. And if you want to be a part of that, then you want to join the blessing room. And we will welcome you into that space with us. So we will jump over there, see you there if you're going to join us. And if not, we'll see you in 2 weeks with another episode of With Love, Jenny. Take care. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I hope you found a spark of wisdom to carry with you, and maybe even a deeper invitation to heal and grow and transform through your own beautiful story. Or maybe this episode made you think of someone who could use encouragement. And if so, I hope you will share it with them. If you'd like to learn more about working with me or attending one of my healing retreats, coaching programs, and other offerings, you can visit my website at jennyaiello.com or email me directly at jenny@jaiello.com. You'll find all the links in the show notes. If today's episode touched you, it would mean the world if you would leave a review or share it with someone who might need it, or just reach out and let me know how it landed for you. I'd love to hear from you. I'm building something special here. Real stories, real life, real connection. One episode, one heart, and one story at a time. As always, with love. Oh, and this is the legal message, but mostly a message from my heart. And I just need to share this with you right now. Please know this podcast is offered solely for educational and entertainment purposes. If you find yourself triggered due to anything that was shared in this podcast, please seek professional help. This podcast is not intended to be a substitute for mental health services. While I am a professional life coach, I am not a psychotherapist, nor am I a mental health clinician. So if you are struggling emotionally, please seek help, because you matter, you are important, and most of all, you are worthy of doing this work, the work that leads you to a better and healthier place. Okay? All right. Thank you. And please always make enough time to take care of yourself, and do so with love.